Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name is Amy Henserling, and you are listening to Watch This List. I finally have Andy Swart back on the pod today after almost an entire year of not seeing his face. And we are covering some really cheerful, happy movies together.
Yep.
uh,
Nothing but the bust.
yeah, that are really about like middle-aged men. I don't know how much I have really to contribute to this experience wise, but
And this was your idea too.
and it was my idea. What were
You're
we
fascinated by middle-aged
I
white
yeah,
men
maybe
from
so. What was I originally going to put with this?
45, 50 years ago.
Andy, there was something that we were going to do with the swimmer before putting all that jazz, but I can't remember what it was.
I can't either. I'm not sure.
It
Was it
was
we were just gonna do it by itself?
no. There was something else we were going to pair with, and then I think you watched it and you were like, "Nah, I'm not feeling it," or something like that. And then
Oh, maybe.
I thought of all
I
that jazz,
Yeah, because I hadn't seen all that jazz at that point.
right?
Now I've
And
seen it twice.
I forced you to buy it on Criterion.
Yeah. Well, I first watched it on Tubi, the same with The Swimmer, and then I'm
Ugh,
like, this isn't good enough. So
no.
I got both of them on Blu-ray now.
Well, all
Um,
that jazz is really should not be on a like. Not that Tubi's low quality. I know you're like a fan, but
I'm a big Tubi fan.
I know. So, what was it about it that didn't deliver? Because that's your go to.
Well, I mean, there's commercials in it.
I know, but what
That's
normally that doesn't bother you though for other films.
I well, because I usually watch like cheesy stuff on there,
Oh,
like
okay.
old comedies from the '80s, like
Yeah.
Easy
We
Money with Rodney Dangerfield or something stupid like that.
we watched. You remember that time that we watched that movie with Robin Williams about the
Oh
dad
yeah, World's Greatest
on
Dad. God, that
on
was
Tubi?
weird. And the commercials that were coming up were so weird. That's another thing too, is like if your brain automatically tries to tie the commercials in with the movie, and it's so. I remember the first time I watched a movie on there, and it was like Chili's baby back ribs came on during whatever I was watching. I'm like, oh my god, this is bizarre.
You felt like they were like AI. The
Yeah,
commercials were catering to the
like
film.
it fit within the film somehow.
That is crazy.
I was watching like some. It was right when Godard died, and I watched like one of his newer movies, and
Uh-huh.
it was really a weird movie. And then like right in the middle of it, it was like Chili's baby back ribs came on, and I'm like, I think I even wrote that. Like he would have loved this. Like
Oh, I see what you're saying.
he
I see what you're saying now.
like because it's like this is so weird. It's like a collage of strange.
Well, that is actually an apt descriptor for the swimmer. It is
Yeah,
it's a collage of strange. Like
collage of strange.
I don't
Yep.
even know how to like my dad is the person who made me watch The Swimmer, and he is pretty straight laced, like narratively,
Mhm.
and then my brother and I are sitting there like, what the heck is this? Like,
Honestly can't imagine watching that with my parents, and I mean, think about that too. Like, I remember I was a huge fan of Mad Men, and this was kind of in that vein a little
yeah,
bit, of the weirder Mad Men episodes. And my mom watched Mad Men, and like I remember watching like one of the last episodes with her. It was just weird, and I was drunk. I'd been at a Twins game. I was wasted, and it was just the oddest experience. And that's kind of what it feels like to watch The Swimmer. And I cannot because I it was weird for me watching it by myself. Even in the
yeah.
start of the movie where he's just like randomly in the woods coming upon somebody's swimming pool. I'm like, and he doesn't have the idea to do the all the pools until he gets to the first pool. So like, what the hell was he doing before he got to the first pool? He was
There's
like in
so
his
many
swim.
there's so many
Like,
questions though
like
because
I want to see a movie about that.
yeah,
Like,
like
how did he end up in
how
his
did
swim
he end up
trunks in the
yeah.
woods? And there's deer there, and he's just climbing up a hill, and he ends up at his friend's swimming pool. What the hell was he doing?
No, but like what was okay, so this movie starts out, it's already like kind of dreamy and strange at the beginning. You can tell with the music and everything, it's a little bit surreal. So it's
Yeah,
almost like set up as a horror film. But then
yeah.
the whole time you're like, we're like, because all the reactions of his friends are like, does he know like is he like Does he have a
It
home?
just,
Does he have a like we learn
you
all
got to
these
watch.
things.
You got to watch the Blu-ray of it because it's released by Grindhouse, which is like the thing that plays before Tarantino movies play it, where it's like
Yeah,
do
right.
do 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 do, and like then all of a sudden it's this old Burt Lancaster movie where he's just at swimming pools for an hour and a half. Like,
Swim.
you're
I'm
like
gonna swim home.
the whole time you're like expecting something horrible to happen. Like when he gets to that empty pool with the kid, I'm like, is the kid gonna fall in and like crack his head open? Like the first time you watch it is so bizarre. And then the
Yes.
next times after that, you're like, oh, there are these like little tiny breadcrumbs that can easily pass by you if you're not super paying attention.
No, but how did he get to like what you're saying? Like how do you think he got there? Like the movie starts in the
I,
middle.
yeah,
There's no
it's
preface.
and I love those like day in the life movies where it's just like
Yeah.
this one 8 hour span and it's like a hangout movie and it's it's almost like an early 70s movie, but it actually was shot. I found out too from the special features that it was actually shot in the summer of 1966. So
Mm,
it took like 2 years to come out. So like that even blew my mind further because I'm like, this is kind of a hippy dippy late 60s movie. But that means the short story came out probably in the mid 60s, I think, or whatever it
right.
was. And then the lady that wrote it, who her husband directed it, like she had to been think so there's this undercurrent of this weirdness before, way before, like 5 years before it actually started coming to the surface in the public life, which I think is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and that's like it is so of its time, but like
Hmm.
with the outfits and everything
Hmm.
and the attitude, it's
Hmm.
almost like the Graduate feel
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
it's like this like
suburban.
Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, ring a ding ding stuff, and then it just gets like infiltrated by this weird, trippy like stuff from the '60s
But
in
it's
the
like
middle of it.
Stepford Wives too. Like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, like Rosemary's Baby. Like it just
yeah.
really, I don't know. It's just such an odd combination. I couldn't believe like I don't think I ever watched it till maybe last fall, and I can't believe
Oh,
I'm like, how have
really?
I never heard of this or seen this?
But you were like
Uh,
blown away by it. What is
oh
it? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like what is it? Because you were you able to go on the wavelength like from the get go? And okay, first question is, were you able to get on the wavelength? Second question is, were you able to because it was Bert? Like I feel like because it's Bert doing it, somehow that like excuses all the questions that we might have or the weirdness.
Yeah, I think so because well, and it's another thing. It's weird too because I'd seen obviously you've seen him in other movies, but I remember the first time ever seeing him was in like Field of Dreams, where he's like
Oh wow,
Moonlight old man, Moonlight
yeah,
Graham, and he still has like that voice in the movie, and it's like it's so trippy to me to hear that voice, but then he's young and he's like this ladies' man, and it's like holy crap, this is so bizarre, and he's going through some of the same feelings like somebody in their mid 40s, 50s would go through, and
yeah.
you get tied to it like wow, my parents and my grandparents went through this too. It's weird.
It's
I don't want to picture them doing this stuff. Like you don't
like
think of it.
like being like the nude people that are just like sitting around and they're like telling their kids to come over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And they're
like yeah,
and they want them to be like
exactly.
the same way.
It's this weird. There's like nudists, but then there's also these like people that seem like they're straight out of 50s talking about the new lawnmower that they got,
Right.
and how great it is, and the 99.99.99% filtering of their pool system. It's like this weird satire, but it also seems super real because you have all this information in your head. You're coming to it. Me personally, because Mad Men's one of my favorite things ever. So that's all I picture is like this. I could totally see Don Draper doing that. Like when
Right.
he was trying to sober up and he was going to the club, to the YMCA to swim every day. Like I could totally see him melting down and just doing something crazy like this out in the suburbs. Um,
But the way that it's like the way that it unfolds is very particular because he starts off like he's clearly deluded and like in total denial of
yeah,
his life. We don't know
but you
though.
don't know
We
that.
don't
You don't
know.
know that until like you start
Yeah.
seeing tiny little glimpses, but you don't know
Right.
that for sure till the very end.
Yeah, but all the people's reactions to him eventually are like, "Are you all there?" Like when
Yeah.
he meets the 20-year-old girl she's like, "Oh, stop. Like your kids are growing up." And then you're
Yeah.
like, "Does he know that they're like does he know what year it is?"
Yeah.
Like you start like and it's his sense of time is just tremendously off. But then we're still
Yeah.
kind of going along gathering new information at every new pool, you know?
Well, like even like rewatching it, like after that, when he takes off running like down the hill or whatever he's doing after that first pool scene, when everybody is kind of just having a good time and like it's like lazy Sunday or Saturday day drinking or whatever, you're like, he's just a crazy drunk guy. You just think
Yes.
he's just a crazy drunk guy and like he's just being a lunatic and but then you really, as it comes, you're like, is this guy all there? Is he
Right.
schizophrenic? Does he have a dual personality? Like what is he doing? And
And
especially when
he keeps telling everybody his daughters are playing tennis. Like he's like,
yeah, and it gets more and more. And in the beginning, it's funny, and then it gets more and more like kind of upsetting. And you're like, where is this going? And what's wrong with this guy? Is he going to get hit by this? He ends up in his swim trunks on the highway with all these cars blowing by him. Like, and he almost becomes like the way I looked at it is it almost becomes like a deer in the headlights, right? Like he becomes the deer, just bounding through yards and no direction, doesn't know where he's going, like runs into traffic, and it's just like, wow, this is like a crazy metaphor for that time and place. And even
yeah. And
kind of,
then
it works in any decade, really.
that's what I mean. I was going to say that's what I was trying to say, that it's of its time, but it's also timeless because
Yeah,
you can feel the themes and you can feel the need, especially I like how it gets progressively worse emotionally. So
yeah,
that like the scene where he's with his past lover, who's just like vindictive AF and is just like so over it. And he's like, what? Like
yeah.
genuinely doesn't
You
remember.
loved it. You loved it.
That's right.
That's the scene that got added later. I mean,
Oh, okay.
we
Oh,
can go
yeah.
over that later,
Okay, so
but
Andy,
like
tell us about all the
that's
special features because Andy did extra homework for this, and you have to tell us how many swimming trunks he
a
went
lot of
through.
it was really boring. Okay, so I got my facts written down. So
Get out your notes.
Bert did have a coach to teach him how to swim from UCLA.
Oh, that's pretty
But they
cool.
went through 17 pair of swim trunks. 12 of them became unusable, whatever that means.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the pools was a house of the writer, the Academy Award winning writer of 12 Angry Men. I thought that
Sidney
was
Lumet.
I don't know. I don't think that no, I think it was the writer, not the director.
I think he wrote it, but go on.
Um,
Continue on.
okay, so
Right.
so it's all just pretty boring except for there's one thing.
Okay, I'm
Um,
ready.
we thought that I had thought that Frank Perry, who is Eleanor Perry's husband, who wrote the screenplay, got fired off the film and replaced by Sidney Pollack. The
Right.
story is a lot more convoluted than that. It apparently revolved around that scene you were just talking about. So that scene, when they did the movie, they shot it in a few weeks or whatever, um, out in the suburbs, I think outside New York somewhere. Um, so it was a different actress, and her name was Barbara Loden.
Okay.
And I think she was famous. I don't know. They show stills of it. They don't actually have footage of it. But she was married to the director Ilya Kazan, who is he did On the Waterfront. He directed On the Waterfront. He's a famous director, award-winning director, and so he was involved with this producer guy who is, I guess, pretty famous. His name is Sam Spiegel. He's won 3 Best Picture awards, which is like Lawrence of Arabia, On the Waterfront, Bridge over River Kwai. Like, and he was just
David Lean. Yeah.
he was like this crazy producer guy that nobody wanted to mess with, right? So he had watched it with Ilya Kazan because it was his wife, and he like freaked out. And apparently there was some part of the scene was like them getting in a physical altercation, and her
Yeah.
top came off, and it just like way different than the scene that is in the movie. And so Ilya Kazan basically got it killed, and he told him to burn the negative. So the film was over, done. All this, they interviewed the first AD, second AD, everybody, the crew, and they all were off to different jobs and stuff like that. So this was like 66, 67, whatever. So they decided to reshoot it. They get 300 grand. Some of it was Burt Lancaster's own money. He gets his friend Sidney Pollack, who was young, probably pretty young at the time, but Sidney Pollack became a famous director. He also, interestingly enough, replaced Harvey Keitel in Eyes Wide Shut. And
And he
he,
did Tootsie and Out of Africa,
yep,
uh, 3
yep,
Days of the Condor, lots of stuff with Redford.
yeah,
Go ahead.
tons of stuff. Like, I think, did he do The Firm? Was he in The Firm? I don't
He
know why I
did The
think of that.
Firm. He did The
Yeah.
Firm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, they reshot this thing in California. That whole scene is shot in a different place with a different actress named Janice
She was
Rule, I think is
great.
her name. She was really good.
She's quite frightening.
And everyone else, they thought the movie was done. They had no idea the reshoots were going. They didn't see. They watched the movie and said, where the hell did that scene come from?
It's like the best
It didn't
scene
get It
besides
didn't
the
get
end.
released till 1968, right? So
Wow.
they had no idea, and apparently Frank Perry was the Perrys were going to get fired over this scene with Barbara Loden, and she was not even in the movie at all now. But that's the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that was it. It wasn't, and it didn't. I thought it happened during the movie because Lancaster didn't get along with the director, and there's like weird stuff about that. Like Joan Rivers said, that was her first movie, and
Yes.
she would be directed by this guy Frank Perry, who she really liked and knew. And then he would leave, go off the set, and Burt would come in and redirect her, tell her where to stand,
That is great.
reblock it. Like, I guess
Legend.
he was, yeah. I guess he was just, and he was the only famous person on the movie, and everybody was like intimidated by him because it was like a $500,000 movie until he signed on. Then they were all of a sudden 1.75 million or something like that. So, and everybody there had to be just young as hell because they were still getting interviewed and they're old guys. But this was taking place in 1966. So I think it was just this interesting dynamic. They all said that Burt was like the nicest guy ever, to the point where there was a guy, something happened with a limo driver and he got in an accident. He got fired off the movie. And Burt went to the producer and made sure he got paid for the whole movie and not just that first couple days. By all accounts, he was a super great dude, but he also was very exacting when he was on the set. And they felt like they had to listen to him because he was so famous. And
And
they were kind
scary.
of,
He's like a big guy, and
yeah,
he's very
yeah,
intimidating, even though the smile like throws you off a little bit. But it's like
yeah, yeah,
you're kind of
yeah.
that just reminded me. I
So,
just read like recently. This is completely off topic, but like when they were doing Mrs. Doubtfire, Sally Fields, one of her parents like passed away, and Robin Williams like absolutely made sure like she was like he was just such a good guy.
yeah, I've
Like
heard that about him. Yeah,
yeah. And so
yeah. Some
all
of them, yeah.
it stays with you, you know, like when you're like, oh, this is like a genuinely good person, not just
And that's how it was. Like every single person they interviewed had a story like that about him, including
really.
the teenage girl was interviewed who she was like really old now, and it's so interesting to see them and like, how do you even remember this? You know, this is like
Yeah.
50 years ago, over 50 years
Yeah, but
ago.
you would remember if you
But
were hanging
uh,
out with Burt Lancaster in swimming
yep,
trunks.
and a lot of them, it was their first or second movie. You know, they started in
Yeah.
commercials and stuff, and they had never dealt with someone that famous before, like to the point where they were so nervous they were throwing up before he came to the set the first day.
Wow. Also, I
Yeah.
mean, we have to talk about like I mean, we have to mention at least the physicality of like this entire movie. Somebody is in swimming trunks barefoot. Okay. He's like Burt Lancaster was like 55 years old, I think, at the time. And he's so like buff and just and the whole time he is either running. One time he's running
The
with a
horses.
horse.
He jumped over like the equestrian fence thing, like it just and in slow motion. Like it's just the weirdest. Like that was like
Yeah.
when I was, doing this a little bit more. Like
Uh-huh.
I can't imagine what that would be like
Oh my
watching that.
gosh.
Like really, like it had to be crazy. Like people going to. I don't think it was ever as famous as 2001, but like that was around the same time when people were going to movies for the
That's
first
right.
time and seeing
Yeah.
things that were trippy.
Trippy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think are the main, if you had to say the themes, because I think virility is one of them definitely, and like the whole thing of like lost youth or trying to get it back. Like,
Oh yeah.
what would you characterize these things as?
Well, there was two things. One, I watched one of the old trailers, and one of the taglines was "A man suddenly plunged off the deep end of life." That was a good one. And then Burt Lancaster's daughter was on that, and she called it the angst of modern man, and I thought that was super over the top, but also kind of appropriate for how strange it was.
Yeah.
So
Suburban
yeah, I
angst.
would. Yeah, it was that you get to that age, like now what? What was that song? Is there anything? What is it? Oh, God, I can't remember the name of it.
You
Is that
you
all
are
there
gonna
is?
know what I'm talking.
Is that all there is?
Oh
It's
yeah,
in
from
it's in
After
Mad
Hours.
it's in Mad Men too.
And
Is
After
that all?
Hours, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is that all? I can't remember who sings it, but like it was a famous song back then, and like
It's also in the movie Beach Bum. Have you ever seen The Beach Bum with Matthew McConaughey?
yes, I love that movie. It's
I love that movie
fantastic.
too.
It's in that
And they
movie. I don't remember
yeah,
that at
they
all.
dance to it.
I remember they had a really good soundtrack. I
Yeah,
remember
that was a movie where I was like, I saw that in the theater and I was laughing so hard I was crying.
it
The
was
scenes
awesome.
with Jonah Hill, like
Yeah,
it is so
I think
funny.
that's better than Spring Breakers actually. Like
Oh
I would,
wow, that's
I that was one
well,
of my
yeah.
favorite movies of that year.
It was great.
Yeah,
I think I was like I was so it was so unexpectedly
and Snoop
joyous.
Dogg. Yeah, exactly. I remember being so mad at him at the end when he blew up
The
the money.
money,
Yeah, just what are you
spoiler
doing,
alert.
dude? Like, but like
No, but that's who he
that's such
was.
the character. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like what 5 6 years old now.
That movie
Like
was
every
great.
time I'm
I
on here,
really loved it.
I spoil something. God
I
dang it,
know.
I wasn't
Okay,
gonna
all
do
right,
that.
anyway, so you're saying is that all there is? You reach a certain age in your
Yeah,
life, and
yeah,
then you're like, "What?" Yeah, but it's not just that though, Andy. He's also like like he has a lot of regret and a lot of like
yeah, yeah. Your kids
because
are
he's
grown up. Like it's like an empty nester thing too.
yeah,
Like
but he's
he's
not like near death. He has a long way to go.
I know, but I don't think he saw it that way. And I think at that time, people didn't live as long either. That's another thing too. So when you're hitting your 50s, you might have 15 years left instead of 20 or 25. Um, I think the midlife crisis hit a lot harder back then too, because a part of the movie too is him being out of date with the current times. Like it's like a fish out of water movie too.
Like
I did
irrelevant.
think thought it was insane when the teenager or the 21 year, how old is she? I don't
I think
remember.
she's 20 because
She's in college, I think.
she's in college.
But
Yeah,
she went on the computer to get a date,
that's right.
and that was filmed in 1966. Like that is insane to me.
Yeah, I
Like
don't know
ever.
how that. I
Well, it
remember
used to be
thinking
like
that, and I was like,
newspapers, right? They do it in newspapers. They put out,
yeah, but they had computers then.
yeah, apparently.
Okay, well,
I don't know. Like that's what like the computer date. And I'm like, that was a good way of showing him being completely out of
out of
time.
touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and not really knowing what year it was, and feeling like he's just like could be discarded and
He's
nobody
almost
would
like
know.
this unfrozen caveman, like thawed out and then just put into this world of people who are still kind of living the high life and not seeing the downside of getting older, and
Mm,
also the younger people who are in a completely different place than this guy is, and
right.
who basically look like him as some kind of like exotic. And that's how the young girl is like. This guy's like an exotic, animal in some ways. He's so different than the people I hang out with. But
Yeah, but then he turns on her, and she's like, "Oh, never mind. Like
yeah, yeah, it's like
you're way too sad."
she was feeling sorry for him, and she was
Yeah,
remembering him as like the cocky ad man or whatever. And then she sees his real self, and it scares the shit out of her. I think. But then she starts kind of feeling bad for him.
do you feel like this hits differently as like a midlife crisis movie because it's in the 60s, or do you feel like it hits because of how like universal it is? Because I wonder if like it hit you particularly because of the context of it more so than just like a midlife crisis movie, like in general.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. Like it would hit me like the out of touch stuff, like the old guy stuff, kind of hit me the first time, and then this time it kind of was more like, oh yeah, now I know what it's like to be unemployed or be out of work and feeling those type of feelings. So then it's like a lot of different layers to it. There's the out of touch old man, but there's also like, hey, what do I do with the rest of my life? There's also my kids are growing up. I destroyed my marriage. Where do I go now? There's also, hey, mental health part of it comes into play when you get to the end
Right.
that you didn't realize. Like, holy God,
Right.
this guy is really screwed up. He needs someone needs to take him in. But at the time, in the '60s, they didn't. It wasn't the same way. Like if you remember some of that Mad Men stuff, it was like weird for them to see shrinks and stuff like that. People would make fun of you. So like I think there's so many different readings of it. That's why it's so interesting to me, and like I could watch it every day.
Yeah, and well, and I also think that it's like the reason he got fired and like all that whole thing of like there's like how he was in his career, which it seems like he was really important, and then something happened. But then
Yep.
also how every time he's like, "I'll pay you tomorrow. I'll pay you tomorrow. I'll pay
Mm-hmm.
you later." That everybody's like he's just like a bum, even though he was
Mm-hmm.
successful. He still was just like a drunk who
Yeah.
didn't pay anybody back and was kind of a loser. Like
And he didn't want to start over because remember that one guy offered him a job
that's
and
right.
he just kind of poo pooed it and like
But I think
and
he was in denial about even losing his job.
yeah, yeah, he I don't think his character even knew that he had lost his job. I
Exactly.
I think that's the whole thing that blew people's minds probably the first time they saw it. Because I can't imagine there was any other movie like that in the
Oh no, and it
'60s.
didn't do well.
No,
I mean,
I can't imagine that being accepted at all.
right.
I can't even believe like it became into a cult classic or anything like that because like when did it start
Getting
picking up
more.
that yeah getting more recognition that I'd like to know that because I don't they didn't really talk much to that. I mean I didn't watch all of the 3 hours of extras which is basically
You were like, I'm bailing. Okay,
well
well,
yeah
yeah. The last thing
there
I have
was
to touch on here because I always associate your writing style with nostalgia. I think that you are like a deeply nostalgic person, and so that the vibe of him, where especially when he's with the little boy, of like how the past used to be and how I feel like that scene in particular just encapsulates your sort of tone and how you write because a lot of the way that you write when you're talking about a movie is weaving it
mm,
into your past
that's
or
true
weaving it into a song from your past.
yeah
So,
I don't know why I try to stay away from that but it always ends up being like this
no, you
80
shouldn't stay away
80
from it.
it's like this 80-20 thing where it's 80% sadness journal and 20% movie criticism. I don't know where that comes from. I
Well,
I
it's this nostalgia. You just have you have such an acute memory. Like
I
it's
I
like
guess yeah. Like things just remind me. Like I'll be watching them and like oh yeah, like, a
see?
version of that happened to me.
Yep.
And I didn't think I had anything in common with this character. And then you see some little thing, and you're like, oh yeah, like everybody's connected and to everybody in some way. That's kind of how it feels. Um,
But you're very media
I try to.
centric because you'll think of like you'll be like, "Oh, here's a commercial, like an old commercial that you saw," or you know
Oh
what I
right.
mean?
Oh
Like you
yes,
tie in all
yes.
sorts
That's
of like,
that's true. I forgot about that. I forgot about. Um, oh
yeah,
crap! I thought there was something here I had written down about that, but I
and
can't remember
about
now.
nostalgia.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
You,
but yeah, it's just something about that scene. Like I think I wrote like when you get to that, it's the only pool that's empty, and there's a young kid there, and he was like
playing
he
the
said something,
recorder.
yeah, just bizarre. Like it is like it's like this moment of clarity, but it also is a moment where this guy is completely insane. But
Yeah.
then he tells the kid, "You're the captain of your own soul," or something like that to that nature, and it's like the most. Oh my god, I think he's right, but he's also insane.
He's also
And
like swimming through an empty pool.
yeah,
Like he's
yeah,
having the kid like
yeah,
do laps.
yeah, yeah. It's just like he's the kid's mentor, but he's also an insane person who's in his underwear coming into this kid's yard. Like in this day and age, that wouldn't be,
Oh
I don't
no.
know what you would even compare it to, maybe like falling down or something like that. But there's just no other thing like it. Like you couldn't make that movie today. People wouldn't buy it.
And he's got that great line that I texted you after I saw it of like the make believe, if you make believe something long enough and hard enough. And that's kind of the thesis of the whole thing is like
Yeah.
he is inventing his own reality, and
Yes.
reality is trying to come in to help
Yeah.
him. And he's just like resisting the whole time. I
Yes.
mean, the
Until he gets to
reality,
the end. Yeah.
the kid is like, what does he say? There's like a hilarious line about my dad ran off with my
Oh, the
mom's manicure.
manicurist. Yeah. That was, yes, yes. It's super funny. It's super scary. And there's like these super poetic lines in it.
Yeah.
That whole scene is like just the most ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if that was Cheever, the short story guy, or if it was
Yeah.
the lady writer who was married to the director that wrote that. But it's like
And then he's like, I'll be
something
here
so
tomorrow.
yeah, it's so universal, but it's almost like a like a comedy routine in some ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like really scary because you're like, where is this film going? I have
And
no
he's
idea.
almost like a Peter Pan figure too, I think. Like it's almost like he is
Yes.
that child. I mean, it like if this were sort of like an Alice in Wonderland thing, then that could be him as a child talking to himself in a way.
Yeah, that I could see that reading too. Like that's he's talking to his inner child basically,
Yes.
and
Yes.
trying to soothe him and make him feel better.
Yes.
Um,
And
but it
try to
doesn't.
save him from like jumping off the diving board into an empty
Yes,
pool.
yes. That I mean that is definitely the key. I think that scene is the key to the whole. I mean to the
So do
whole
I.
movie.
Yeah.
Um, I know the last scene with the mistress and her pool and everything. That's like the emotional part of it. But like I think the key to the whole movie is the kid. And that's probably why they did it. Had the pool be empty to kind of make it
Right.
stand out from the rest of the little vignettes or whatever. It's really
How did you
weird.
How did you feel about the ending, like, not knowing that it was coming? 'Cause this ending is, like, one of the best I've ever seen in terms of, like, you have
Mhm.
no idea, and then all of a sudden it starts raining, and then the house is just empty,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's, like, horrible.
it's beautiful like sunshine, and then he gets to like it's almost this haunted. He climbs up these rocks to this haunted mansion, and it's almost like it is like a horror film because like I know I called out like how the whole movie like they don't use as much handheld in that, but the ending is like it switched to this handheld like point of view, like almost from like a slasher movie, although they didn't really exist then, and they kind of just it's like this presence is following him, like this evil is following up, and it's so different than the rest of the movie where it's just like fun loving backyard barbecues. But I guess some of that started when he hit the public pool too, where
Yeah, where
that's
his
when
feet were bleeding and
reality starts crashing in.
right.
But it's so slight through the whole movie, and then just those last two scenes is just it's almost like a horror movie. Like
Really.
it makes you feel like so bad for the guy, but at the same time, you've watched him for an hour and a half be a complete aloof dickhead.
But this is why I think, okay, so to tie this into sobriety, because this was my original conception, as I felt like The Swimmer is a rock bottom movie, like
Oh yeah,
where it's like, most people who have some addiction have things along the way that are trying to warn them and
mm-hmm.
trying to warn them and trying, and then it's like, but you don't get it until you get it, and you don't know what's going to make you get it. You can't
Yes,
choose it almost. So
yes,
so coming home to an empty house and like banging on the door and it ending there, it feels like, okay, he has gotten the information he needed to maybe turn around.
mm-hmm.
But that's kind of a fascinating thing where like either you as the addict or you watching an addict, you're like, how many things do you need?
Yeah. What's it take?
What does,
What does it
yeah,
take?
what does it take?
Like,
And to you, you're thinking, I would have stopped at this other pool, but no, you can't. It's almost like we can't determine what that
well,
is.
that is what I liked about that movie Flight with Denzel Washington, and it's so corny and cheesy, but the ending is so like that ending. Where is the rock bottom going to be? Like he's rock bottom, rock bottom, rock bottom, but then at the end, he's like, he's right there, going to get away with whatever he did, which was drunk flying an airplane or whatever. But
Right.
he lies, 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 and he gets to this last thing, and he's just couldn't do it anymore. And when he's in jail, he's like, I just couldn't tell one more lie. And everybody has that breaking point. And I don't
Hopefully.
know. I don't know if Lancaster's character found it because you don't know if he's going to end up in jail or a nut house, or like, I mean, he's basically just crying on some random stair steps at the end. But
I just like to think that
that's the breaking
that's
point.
right. Right.
That's when reality comes into this fake world that he's been manifesting
Yes.
in his mind. Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah. It's like the denial departure, hopefully. I mean, like, it's so interesting to me because I always think like when people relapse, to me, what that communicates in my understanding is that the bottom wasn't low enough, right? You have to
Yeah,
assume
yep,
sort of that not low enough in reality, low enough for that individual, because those are
yes,
different things.
yes.
Like,
Because outside external forces can look like a rock bottom from the outside,
exactly.
but for you personally, it maybe doesn't matter at all because you didn't hit that within yourself. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's totally a perfect reading of that film.
Well,
I think you're right.
I think, well, to transition to all that jazz, he never has one. Like,
No,
like
no.
the that character that Roy Scheider plays is like, to the death, he does not convert. And he has so many opportunities and so many people who love him
Oh yeah.
and
Even though he's a
revere him.
complete a-hole,
Yeah.
he still has people offering him lifelines. And it's not just like once or twice like in The Swimmer, it's like every scene someone is offering him some sort of lifeline or way out or break, and he just doesn't want to do it, and that to me is more like less about the sobriety, although he does a bunch of drugs in it. You can tell it's definitely 79 coke related versus like 68 hippy dippy. It's definitely cut like that. It's like a
Scotch on the rocks.
Scorsese cut coke movie, which is I had no idea because I was like, I hate musicals. I've never watched all that jazz. That sounds hideous. I'm not watching that.
Yeah,
And
you
I
were
don't know.
very
Were you the
resistant.
one that talked me into it? Because
Yes, I was.
I'm
I
like, I'm
was.
not watching this. I mean,
I was like,
Roy
Andy, you
Schneider's
must
okay,
watch it. Because it
and
was
I'm like,
so similar
holy crap.
to The Swimmer, in the sense that, like, both are sort of confessional movies in a way where, like, I mean, obviously all that jazz is literally, he is confessing to Jessica Lange,
Yep.
and she's kind of going through his life,
Yeah.
explaining. So at least in all that jazz, we have a background. Like, this guy
Yeah.
grew up in like a strip club, and like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
hope did he
Just the
have?
same as Don Draper. He grew up in a
Right.
whorehouse, right?
Right. Good
It's like
point.
that same mentality. But like the
Yeah.
bizarre scene where he's dancing and stuff like that. I'm like, you don't expect to see that in a musical in the 70s. It's just like this crazy meltdown movie that's inside of this classic, Broadway musical type thing. And I had
Right.
no idea like it was about him or the Lenny
Fosse.
movie and you
Right.
know
Lenny.
all of that stuff, which is I thought was funny because the funniest part of that movie to me was how unfunny those scenes were with the stand-up
Very,
comedian, which
very.
I don't know if he did that on purpose or not, but to
I'm
me,
sure
like,
he did.
that guy is not funny at all.
No,
Like the
and it's
only
all about denial and bargaining, and it's
yeah,
he's literally talking about the 5 stages of grief as a
yeah,
stand-up comic.
like it's like his inner critic or something like that. And the only thing funny that he said I wrote down was, to a Catholic, death is a promotion, which I think pretty much is pretty much true if you grew up Catholic.
Mm. Yeah, but then, I mean, so this is a guy who's like, I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording, where, that spirit of defiance, where it's like, don't tell
Mm-hmm.
me what to do. He was
Mm-hmm.
like the cardiologist is like, hey, and he's like smoking in the hospital bed. He's trying to pick up women. He does pick up nurses.
He throws a
He,
party in there with like champagne and stuff like that. It's
you,
it's
you,
such a like a coked up New York 70s movie. Like it's just like it's the end of that whole era. And it's just all over the top, but it's got really, like, it seems like real stakes because of the way they edit it with the heart stuff. It's
yeah,
just like it's like a heart attack. It's like the movie's like edited like you're having a heart attack. Like when the sound drops out and his arm hurts, and like any middle-aged man will tell you that they've had that nightmare, right? Where you're having a heart attack and your shoulder hurts and can't breathe. And it's just I had no clue that movie was that or that weird. The ending is absolutely weird. There's like dudes like in like Kiss makeup in the band. Like
And,
what is the what?
yeah, and he's like directing his own self. It's so like,
Yeah, yeah, it's like
he's like directing the end of his life movie.
hospital hallucination take one, like that.
Take one.
That was so funny. Like I had no idea it was that funny. I had no idea Roy Scheider was ever that, the physicality of that. Like I can,
Yeah, unhinged.
any of the movies I've seen him in, never like that. I had no
Yeah,
idea that that was within him. Like definitely his greatest, maybe one of the best acting performances ever.
I agree.
Like it's insane. Like it's right up there with like De Niro, Raging Bull type of thing. Just tour
Yes.
de force.
It really is.
Um,
And the physicality of it too, because I seriously doubt that he was like, he's a very
it's
convincing
insane.
choreographer. And like there's scenes where he's dancing with them and it's so professional and so, I mean, all of the scenes with them dancing are just like top
Oh my
tier
god! Like it
level.
makes you really feel like that's what it's exactly like.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's probably why it was popular, I would imagine. I mean, because
But
nobody
there's
had probably gone that in depth into it. You know,
right,
there's also
like
like a
Foster.
black swan type of quality to it, like Aronofsky type quality to it as well. But um, yeah, I can't imagine anybody had. It's just like The Swimmer. I can't imagine anybody had made that type of movie before. It's like autobiographical drug movie that's also a Broadway musical. It just doesn't even make sense on paper.
But it has like this sweetness to it. I feel like so different than The Swimmer because I don't know that there's like a genuine moment of connection in The Swimmer other than with the little boy. Whereas in All That Jazz, like you're saying, he's really loved. Like in the
Yeah,
scene of Everything Old is New Again, I
yeah.
always tear up when his daughter and his partner like do that dance just to try to
Oh
cheer him
yeah,
up.
yeah.
It's
Even
like,
at
oh,
the end when he's saying goodbye and it's like this big over the top joke, but then he has to say goodbye to his daughter. Like I almost like lost my shit, because you think about your own kids, like in that moment, hey, I should have lived my life a different way. I'd get to hang out with my daughter more.
right.
I think that maybe is a good sobriety tie-in for All That Jazz too, because just
Yeah.
being there a little bit more for your family, and
And
then
like
not,
the need to make amends, I mean, to like say sorry
yeah,
for because remember he says that when he's being wheeled away in the hospital bed, like he's like, I'm sorry. What does he say? I'm sorry for the man I was, and I'm sorry for the man I couldn't be, or
yeah,
he's is reaching that sort of so in that sense, he's far elevated to Ned from The Swimmer
that's
because
true.
Ned
Yeah,
doesn't apologize for a single thing.
never. He's well, and then here he does have. There is some pretty good denial scenes in it though, because right away when he first gets taken to the hospital, like I've never seen someone just like deny that they've had a heart attack
I
like
know.
that before. Like, all right, I'm going back to work now. Like, just like, no, dude, like you just had a major issue. You have to have open heart surgery, and he's just ready to go back in there. And he's just gonna leap out of his bed and go and smoke heaters and what is his phrase that he said? Showtime.
It's showtime, folks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
The way it's
delusion.
edited, like that is one of the best edited movies too. I
I
think
agree.
that I've seen. Just
I've said
it
this to Frank many
it
times. It's
gives
like
you
a
so
top
much
tier.
anxiety. Like the
Mhm.
anxiety of it is insane. Like I mean, it made me feel like I mean, the thing I related to it was like the workaholic thing, like because that's how I was for a lot of years. I related to that totally. Um, to me, that movie is more about the workaholic thing versus the sobriety thing. I feel the more is a sobriety thing with the swimmer, but
Okay.
I can see how you can do the sobriety thing with All That Jazz too. I mean,
Well, it's
but
because it's like a step 5 thing. So, like, the whole thing about, like, confession and that you have to I mean, he didn't do it in the way that, like, it is meant to be done, but I love the scenes with Jessica Lange. I love the idea that, like, you could be in a situation where you could reflect upon it even though he doesn't change. I mean, nothing changes, but it is just it's
well,
an
people
interesting
don't really
process.
change. Like they don't really change. They just they can tweak themselves a little bit and
But
point
you think
themselves in
even
a
with
different
that level
direction.
of awareness that there's no I mean, because if you don't have that awareness, you certainly can't, right? I mean, the first
Yes.
part
No,
is
you
to
can't. You
be
can't.
able to see yourself. And I
Yes.
feel like there's moments where he can see himself. He just decides that he's not going to do anything about it. But he
Yeah,
does
that's where it's
see it.
different than that's where it's definitely different than the swimmer.
Right. That's what I
Because
mean.
he
Yeah.
can see it, he just doesn't give a shit at all.
I
Like
know.
he's just like, I don't care. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going until I fall over, basically. And
This is like,
that's
yeah,
how I felt in my job. Like, I'm going to, probably quit this a long time ago, before the network shut down, whatever. But I was just like, I'm going to see this through. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix, and that's what I saw in him. He's like, he's going to fix this movie with the stand-up guy. He's going to fix all the problems with the dancers. He's going to, they got $1 million whatever life insurance thing on him, so he's got all these pressures, and that's what I really clung to. But it is clear that he does have some sort of terrible drug addiction.
yeah, like the pills are huge, and then he won't stop drinking, he won't stop smoking. They're
Yeah.
like telling him he won't stop eating. I mean, he's just like obsessed with more, like
Yes,
pleasure,
that's what
just
it is. The excess of it.
the
I
excess.
actually, like, I think I had that written down. This is like the most road to excess, it leads to the palace of wisdom type movie that I think I've ever seen.
Well,
Like,
you could put it with what am I thinking of? Port of Call.
yeah, Bad Lieutenant. Yeah,
Port
yeah.
of Call, New Orleans.
It's
That
like
is like
he get
excess.
yeah, he doesn't see it. I mean, he sees glimpses of it, but he doesn't totally see the big picture of it until he is basically dead, about to be zipped up,
Yeah.
which is really sad. I mean, it's kind of, both Bad Lieutenants are like that in a way too.
Right.
Um,
That's what I'm saying. Because I
yeah.
mean, if you take something so far,
Mhm.
you don't come to like enlightenment just because you indulge to where you kill yourself. Basically, like
Mhm.
the end
Yep.
of that road is being like zipped up in a bag.
Yeah. It's
Is the
almost like
message?
they're both like really like, somebody said this in one of their reviews about the Denzel movie I just watched.
Yeah.
But it's like this is like, too, it's like these demented after school specials, like these types of movies are,
Don't do
right?
drugs. Like
Don't do drugs.
uh
Don't drink to excess and
don't
break
drink
into
and
your
fly.
neighbor's pool.
Right.
But yeah, that one for sure is like, hey, this is what's going to happen to you if you're a drug addict and you don't take a break from work, and you're using the drugs to keep going and going and going, and eventually your body says, "F you, dude, lay down
I'm
right
done.
now. You're done."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't
Well,
matter
and
what your mind's saying. You can keep the mind going with all the drugs you want, but eventually your body's just going to tell you to F off.
Well, and really, I think also all that jazz is saying that the only happiness that's possible are in those like small moments, like when he's with the orderly guy and they're
Yeah.
singing tunes in like the
Yeah.
cafeteria. That's like
Yeah.
the happiest he is in the
Yeah.
entire movie, and it's just some
Yeah.
random guy that he just met, but they connected and they have this moment together, and that's like that makes him happier than anything else he's doing to abuse himself.
It does seem like that too. And then in the scene, in the stuff with the daughter, it seems like he's happy when he's, even though if it's some of it's profane or weird or whatever, when he's mentoring his daughter. Same like the pool scene in Swimmer with the kid. Like, even though you're a complete screw up, you will feel better about yourself if you teach the next generation or you mentor the next generation, and tell them whatever you're doing is maybe not the right way, but this is why you did it, and explaining things out in that way. Um,
Like that conversation in the kitchen where she's like, "Why would a girl kiss a girl?" And he's like, "Oh."
yeah, exactly. Well, like,
What
yeah, he's not exactly a great role model in that
That's what I
movie,
was going to say.
but
Right.
like you can see, like there's a joy that he has in trying to take care of his daughter.
Yes.
And that's what made me really sad watching it, is like, it's right there, dude. Like, just take 5 minutes
That's what I'm
and look
saying.
at it.
That's the whole point of the
Yeah.
movie is like it's
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
You actually have what you want. Like
Yes.
you have the place that you're trying to get to with all this crap around you. Like all this That's maybe why I
Oops.
think of it as a sobriety movie, because like the addiction part is blurring his reality so much that he can't even see the good things that are in front of him, and that's so typical.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a great way to look at that film. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely over the top excess, but it's almost like trying to teach everyone a lesson in a way.
Do you feel like that is also like a male preoccupation or a human preoccupation with like legacy? Like when you're talking about like leaving something for your kids or the younger generation, do you feel like that's a male thing that
I
like
think at the time of these movies, it
okay.
was more male, but I think
Yeah.
now if you redid, you could definitely redo that movie with a female director and have all that same stuff, right?
Okay.
But I think in the '60s and '70s, the toxic masculinity was probably worse than it is. Not like it's not bad now, but like it definitely was just so in the air that people didn't know anything else. So
Mhm.
that and I think I always like to compare the movies to now, but I also try to get into the mindset of what it was like when it was made too, because
Yes.
you might get some other things out of it that way. But the one good thing about both of these movies is they translate so perfectly across any generation, like just the humanity of them and how we can really screw things up if we want to, or we can try to change things,
Yeah.
which
And
these guys really don't do
they
at all.
don't. I was about to say and they don't really get better. I
No,
mean,
no.
they don't really, but that's why I kind of feel like they're inspiring in a way to me because they're kind of cautionary tales. Like,
Yes, that's what I meant. Yes, that's exactly what I would say. They're cautionary tales, the after school, grown up after school special type thing. Um, but it's also like super dark. Like, you know, like I keep saying Raging Bull, but like it's kind of like it reminds me of Raging Bull, both of them, but it's like a softer, more realistic version, definitely with the swimmer. Um,
well, and I was gonna say Raging Bull is just like tragic. Like that
yeah, and
ending
he's like a
is like
angry like jock, you know, wife beater, right? It's more,
right,
you know, yeah, it's more cut and dry. Then
right.
these two guys are more like in, you know, like with the Scheider character, that's his profession. Like there's
Hmm.
probably a million guys like him
Right.
on Broadway or making films or movies or TV shows or whatever. That's probably why people glommed onto that too. Like he's like the genius Mad Men director, the lunatic. Um, People love watching that stuff, but
Well, and
I
people
also
love watching like gifted people have tremendous amounts of problems.
yes, and
That's such a
that's definitely all that jazz. I don't know if that's the swimmer as much, but that's definitely all that jazz. Like
but there's so
gifted
many
lunatic.
biopics. Like we're like very fascinated with like
Yeah,
this artist is so talented and their personal life is like
and
just
we
awful.
allow them to be jackasses because they're giving this great art to the world, which
Yep.
isn't the greatest. I think people are holding more artists and people to the fire now than they used to, where people would get away with that type of stuff
Right.
more easily than they do now.
Wait,
But
is
it's
there
still
can
there.
you even think of an example of like a healthy artist? Like of a
No, because
of like
they're working out their shit through their art,
so
and
you don't feel like they could ever be Margaret Qualley had a good quote like recently where she was like I don't know why you can't be a good actor and not be a happy individual because she was like I'm really happy in my life but people feel like that is negative for her art. Jonah Hill has said something
well,
similar too where he was just like you don't have to be like a tortured person
yeah,
to
I
but
think
I
with act
wonder though.
is it
I
different with
wonder.
actors though because they still have those areas they can tap into, whereas
Mm,
you know someone behind the camera or writing or any of those other jobs, it's like you can't go to that place and pretend and then turn it off and on. You're kind of
right.
just you're kind of just always like that, and you got to funnel into something else. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely actors and musicians that you know can't turn it off and on. And those are the ones that
Or
are probably the druggies and the um,
right.
alcoholics.
But that's something I think about a lot with like Brando and like there's certain actors where you're like if they weren't crazy in real life, it really I don't know that they yeah, it's what you're saying like how can you reach certain places if you yourself don't have some
Yeah,
sort of access in a real way. Like you're
mm-hmm.
pretending but
Yeah. Well, yeah. Some people are just, I guess, born with that ability, but I think a lot of people have to just tap into experiences. You know, like you said with the nostalgia thing. Hey, this I kind of know this feeling because this one thing happened to me that was sort of similar, and do if I can exaggerate that out a little bit, then I have something else, another version
Right.
of that. And I think people do that when they write fiction or movie scripts. I think they just do that. That's almost like acting in a way too, I suppose.
I've thought about this a lot with like Ferrera. Like Ferrera, when he was doing like certain films, he was like on cocaine, like going crazy. Like when they did Bad Lieutenant, like he was like
Yeah,
everybody was high the whole time, and that movie is of it a product of its environment. But
totally.
then when he talks about his screenwriter, Nicholas St. John, he's like that guy was sober as hell and like was a Christian and like was very straight laced, but he was writing these scripts for Ferrera. So I
Maybe it
feel
was
like
just
that's
like
such a
his fears and his nightmares. And that's how
right.
he dealt with it, was by writing his way through it. That could be. Um, Everybody's a little bit different. I used to think you could write better or make better art if you were a little bit messed up, but I think once you get sober and you realize you're feeling your feelings a little bit deeper, you can
Yeah,
actually
much.
get
Yeah.
get to an even more meaningful place that you could write about or do stuff about, um, if you just stop and sit with it for a minute. Whereas just medicating yourself is like the surface level. Yeah, it might help you in the short term, but if you want to have something more meaningful long term, I think it's probably better if you get in touch with your sober side a little bit.
I think this is something I think I sent you an excerpt from On Writing when I was reading the Stephen King memoir where he's literally
Yeah,
like it's bullshit that you have to be um you have to take drugs or access some other side of yourself to make because he was like that what was
yeah,
it Cujo
Cujo.
was like
Yeah,
the book he wrote when he was high and he didn't remember it and he was like that book is
yeah,
crap. Like
yeah.
the best things that he felt that he wrote were when he was sober, but that lie is really kind of potent, I think,
Well, that's what
where
makes
it's
The
like
Shining so scary, is because it's all about his alcoholism. Actually, really, most of his books,
a lot of his books.
almost all of it, are about alcoholism in some way.
But then
That's
Doctor Sleep was amazing, and that was like after. Like that
yeah,
entire story and movie is all about like Danny going through the 12 steps literally and like going
and
to meetings.
that's why I hated the book so much, because it was, when I read the book, because I read it right when it came out, I was like, this is not subtle. This is
Oh, okay.
because The Shining, it's, and his other books, it's subtle. Now it's like, okay, it's obvious out in the open. But then
Mhm.
when, what's his name, Mike Flanagan,
Mike Flanagan.
did the movie,
Yeah.
he somehow made it more like the Kubrick thing and the Stephen King thing to be into something that I liked, which was so shocking to me because I hated the book. I was like, why did this? First of all, this doesn't need a sequel. Second of all, it's so
Yeah.
obvious, what it's trying to say. But also, when I read the book the first time, I was still drunk all the time. So
Yeah. This
maybe I
is
should
like
reread it.
yeah. This is like when I used to say like, "Oh yeah, I was reading all these books about alcoholism and I'd be drinking while reading the
Mm-hmm.
books." And I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, that's stupid."
It was. I mean, to me, I still don't think, I don't understand why he would make that book. I still don't. The
I think
Shining is
cuz
so perfect. It
I think he had a dream. I'm pretty sure that I read that Steven was like he had a dream like what happened to Danny? Like he was
he wanted
curious
his,
about
yeah,
answering the question what happened to Danny?
and
And
that,
he had to answer the question basically.
and that's probably why I hated Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me so much,
Oh
because
no.
I didn't understand the first time I watched it. Like, why do I need this? I don't need
Oh, I
this. But
see.
then later on, I watched it again and I really liked it after seeing Twin Peaks: The Return. And David Lynch had been saying, I want more of seeing her, and what I want to see her on screen.
Laura Palmer.
Laura Palmer. I want to dive into that a little bit more. So, I mean, maybe that's the same thing he felt with Danny, which I think is totally legit. But my first reaction is always, why are you messing with this? It's
I
perfect.
understand. Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
so many bad sequels made that just make the original seem less important. Um, but yeah, then, if you have a great artist or writer like David Lynch or Stephen King, then they can overcome that.
Well, and
Not,
Flanagan really was quite instrumental in I mean, I read a lot about it because I didn't even want to watch it. I was like, why would I watch Doctor Sleep? This is stupid. Like I
same.
don't I was like, I don't, and people kept telling me like, oh no, it's really good. And like
Same.
AJ wanted me to watch the 3 hour, it might be even more than
I
that. And
still
I was
haven't
like,
watched that. I've heard that's even better.
yeah.
The
So I
director's cut.
started, I watched the director's cut and I sat down and did it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and it really blew me away. I mean, I thought like the way that the demons are, you can feel within your bones that Steven understands the
Yeah,
feeling, because
he,
it's not just like
he
the
translated it
drug.
such a perfect way.
Yeah, it's your whole, like, the phenomenon of craving thing, how you feel before and during is captured in that movie in like forms of
Yeah.
demons and like
Have
evil.
Have you watched Midnight Mass at all?
No, you told me to do that.
Oh
That's
my
that
gosh, you
Netflix
got to watch.
series,
Yeah, you got to
right?
watch that.
And
It's
that's
amazing.
Flanagan
If
too,
you
right?
Yep, if you like Doctor Sleep, I think you will absolutely love it. It's one of the I usually don't watch a lot of TV shows, but that was amazing. I remember like I actually had I think is when I had COVID a few years ago. I sat and watched the whole thing and it just absolutely blew me away how good it was.
Haunting of
Um,
Hill House is also really good.
yeah, I haven't
I heard
watched
it.
that. I've been meaning to watch all like I don't get to a lot of these shows, but I
Yeah,
mean, for whatever reason, I sat down and watched that, and mostly because of Doctor Sleep, and
right.
it was awesome. I
Okay.
highly recommend that.
Yeah. Well, and if it's on Letterbox, then I mean, I get annoyed when people review shows on
Yeah,
Letterbox,
me too. Me
but
too.
then you probably did, didn't you?
I did because it
Yeah.
was like it affected me so much, and it was a lot of it dealt with some of the stuff that Doctor Sleep, the cravings and the sobriety
Right.
stuff, and it marries it into like church stuff and church lore and guilt and sin and all this stuff, and it
Childhood
just
trauma, all the fun things.
all of the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
that Stephen King usually deals with. It's not Stephen King, I don't think. I can't remember who wrote it or where it came from, but
Yeah.
it feels like that Stephen King style.
Right. Well, and I
Mm,
mean, to a certain extent, a lot of these, like some TV shows really are cinematic. Like where
yeah,
you could, I mean, it really kind of blurs the line.
yep,
It's only a TV show because it's multiple episodes, but otherwise the look and the feel and the quality are. So I'll make sure I do
yeah,
that and then report back. I'll have to write
yeah.
something on it. I've never written about a TV show on Letterboxd, so this would be
That
my
might have
first
been
time.
Yeah, that might have been the first one I ever did. I don't do a lot of them either. I just I don't know. We even just
Yeah,
say it on it'll say like 486 minutes, and I'm like, that's not
that's
a movie, or
that's a lot.
whatever,
That's a big chunk
whatever.
of time.
That's not a movie.
Okay, so I don't know if we've learned anything, but the swimmer and
No,
all that jazz, the double feature of these two movies to me was like a commentary about like middle-aged angst, but also how strong denial is and how like some people don't ever get through it. There's some people in life that literally just never get better. And it's a sobering reminder that like us getting better is actually significant. I mean, it does mean something that like
yeah,
we could get out of it.
yeah, all that jazz is. I mean, it's basically what it is at its essence is a scared straight movie. Like
Mhm.
I think I watch that and it gives me insane anxiety. Like I don't think a movie could do that. I didn't think a movie could do that to me anymore. But definitely, it takes you to a place within yourself that you probably don't want to visit too often.
Yeah. Well, and it's a nice like what's the word for this? Like a rededication inspiration where I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
like you just wrote in the flight review actually yesterday, where you were saying like you had that dream where somebody handed you a beer and you were like, I deserve this, and then you did it, then you were like, no, I'm not doing this, and then you woke up. Like that's I don't know, that means something. Like to be still feeling that way after so many years, no matter what you go through.
well, the weird part of that for me was like all the times I've had those dreams, which is a lot. I've
Yeah,
never
the junk
like
dreams.
said no. I usually just do it, and then when I wake up feeling guilty, which I don't know if that means anything or not, but
Yeah, I think it does.
to me it was like, why am I having this right now? And then you start over analyzing it, and okay, it's because you're going through some weird stuff, and it's just a good reminder just to keep going.
Yes.
It's just simple as that. Just keep going. I
KFG.
usually say keep fucking going. I usually say
Yeah,
KFG, but
KFG.
hopefully my daughter doesn't ever watch this.
Yeah.
I
So we'll
swear too
bleep it
much.
out.
Yeah.
Bleep that. No, but I think it is. I think that any time that like people have described this sensation of like having drunk dreams at certain times in their lives, but anytime that your subconscious chose the right path, that to me that means that your consciousness is in a really good place if your subconscious is aligned. You know what I
Hopefully.
mean?
I
Yeah.
hope so. I hope that's what it means.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to say that this is the beginning. I forgot. I wanted to say how much your Moneyball um, podcast really hit me very hard and really helped me during a really horrible week for me. And I just wanted to say everybody should watch that. If you watch anything,
Listen
if you
to
listen to
anything.
any podcast,
Yeah.
listen to that, especially if you're struggling with alcohol, you're recovering from alcohol. Um, the connections you made between that and the movie were, I thought, brilliant. Or the book too. I thought were absolutely brilliant. And just taking a different view of life is so important when you're going through a recovery from anything or a change in your life. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and I hope people listen to that because it's probably the most emotionally important thing that you've done.
I agree. Thank you, Andy. I was feeling it. Like that was about like coming to believe in a power greater than yourself, and that's like one of the hardest things to do even if you have a concept of God. But you're right, like the whole thing of like being open to new view and like
Mm-hmm.
recognizing in your life that things are speaking to you all the time and that it doesn't matter where it's coming from, just to like be open and willing.
Yeah, and you can build your life in different ways that other people don't see or don't agree with or maybe don't understand, and that's okay.
Right.
You can just like in the movie, you don't have to have the same type of player. You can win with all these different types of players if you just put them together in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah,
I thought that
and
was really moving.
ultimately also comes to the idea that like he's like it's a problem that you think we have to explain ourselves. Like we don't actually we feel so often. I feel so often that I have to explain myself,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Don't. Like, do you believe in this thing or not? Yes. Do you think that this will work? Yes. Okay,
Hmm.
that's like what else
Belief
do we
is
need?"
is belief is very powerful, very
Yes.
powerful. But it also can be very damaging if you really truly believe in something and then have it taken away from you.
Mm,
So part of your thing that I got out of it is like you can start over and build it back in a better way if you believe. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do if especially if you've gone through a period of time where you're really addicted and you're in a hole. You feel like you can't get out of it. Just doing it bit by bit. I think in one review I wrote about that the White Stripes song. I think it's called Tiny Acorns, where it's they have this guy, they have this newscaster from Detroit, like doing this spoken word thing about squirrels and making tiny piles of acorns, and that's kind of the way I pictured that Moneyball thing. You're just doing it one step at a time, and that's kind of obviously the 12 steps are part of that too. And I think I needed that focus right in that moment, and that was really, really a great thing you did for anybody who's getting sober or is sober.
yeah. And for me to preach to myself. I
Yeah,
I was
sometimes
yeah.
you got to sell yourself on it too.
Sometimes you
Yeah,
gotta like sit there and be like, okay, these are the things I know, and these are the things I believe to be true. But what am I doing? Like,
why am I doing this in this
why
way?
am I not taking my own
Is this
advice?
is this the right way to go? I'm good at telling people things, but am I good at doing them myself? I
Exactly,
think
and that's kind of why I mean that episode started with that clip from the DC Talk song from the '90s that I grew up with, like the greatest,
I had never heard that before.
well, like the
DC
greatest
Talk.
threat to
Is that like
Christianity.
Christian rock band? What is that?
Yes,
Oh,
DC Talk. They were one of my
I was
favorite
like,
bands. Oh my gosh,
did you listen to Striper?
that is before my time, Andy. My dad did.
Your dad did? You're not.
My
Come
dad
on, you're
did.
not that much younger than me.
Oh,
Your dad,
please. Okay.
your dad listened to Striper in the '80s.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
God,
the I
I
was
remember
born in
my.
the '80s, Andy.
Well, I would figure he'd be older than that by the, but I just remember them because my buddy in college said that one of the first metal concerts his parents took him to was Striper, and they threw Bibles out.
Yeah. Or like Styx. Do you remember that band?
Oh,
Sticks.
Mr. Roboto. Yeah, yeah. There's
I can't. If I
uh
start talking music with you for too long, I'll be completely out of my element,
no, no,
Donnie.
no. That's another '80s band. They were Christian too. I didn't know that.
Well, they had like a Christian song called "Show Me the Way" that was really, really good with a
Ah,
really good music video. But this is
huh.
like, I mean, like Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman. There's tons of like all the
Yeah, I
things I
remember
could
my
come up with.
mom had a record, Amy Grant record that she played all the time when I
That's
was
who I
growing
was
up.
named after.
No way.
Yeah,
Seriously? Uh, well, I wasn't. Let's just say I wasn't really into the any of the Christian music.
yeah. I can't imagine you at that time. Okay, so
No.
we've been all over the place. I hope that some of this has been helpful. Thank you, Andy, for
Oh,
promoting
thank you.
my solo eps, and this has been a joy. And I feel that we included everything that need to be included, and I hope that everybody watches these very downer movies. Just make sure you have a comedy handy
Yeah, yeah. Right, like
for
Rodney
after.
Dangerfield. Or go on
Yes,
Tubi and find some weird Burt Reynolds movie to watch. That's usually what I do when I'm in a bad mood.
and think of Andy when you see the Chili's ad for baby back ribs.
Jean-Luc Godard and Baby Back Ribs. Yeah. Yeah, we really have hit everything, haven't we?
We have.
All right. I guess we're done then.
See you at the movies.
All right.